In this health questionnaire form, we have a couple of general questions, a temperature question, a symptoms checklist, and a select question for the user to choose their medical aid. Here we have the form's custom template. Let's add if statements to the first couple of questions so that the question and answer will only appear if the submission contains an associated value. We'll need to add an if statement start in front of the content we'd like to conditionally show and an if statement end after the content. To add an if statement start, use a curly bracket with a percentage sign, space, if, space, then add your placeholder's identifier. Add another space, percentage sign, and closed curly bracket. To add the if statement end, add a curly bracket, percentage sign, space, end if, space, percentage sign, and curly bracket. This closes the if statement. Anything between the if statement start and end will be conditionally active. Let's go ahead and add the rest of these questions' if statements. You can also use other operators to check values. For example, if we'd like the words individual has a fever to be displayed if their temperature is over 99 degrees Fahrenheit, we can use a bigger than operator in the if statement, like this. If we'd like no fever to be displayed in other cases where the temperature is 99 or under, we can use the smaller or equal to operator. Remember to add the end ifs. Here is a list of other available operators. When working with tables, if you'd like an entire row as well as the cell borders to be conditionally visible, add the if statement start right at the beginning of the row and the end if in the final column at the end. This will allow the entire row to disappear if the conditions are not met. Let's add the rest of the if statements. We can also use if statements to display checkboxes. Here we have a section of the form with a series of yes/no questions which allows the user to select whether they have any of these symptoms. Each question will need to display an empty checkbox symbol if the answer is no, and a checkbox if it is yes. Let's add an if statement for the empty checkbox first. For yes/no questions, use a lowercase no in quotation marks. Now let's add the checkbox and if statement for when the user selects yes. The first if statement will display an empty checkbox if the answer is no. The second if statement will display a checked box if the user answers yes. Let's add the rest of the if statements by copying the first one and simply replacing the question's identifiers. In our health form, the user can select a medical aid from two options. In our report, we'd like only the associated company's logo to be displayed. Just like text, images can also be conditionally visible. Simply add the images and place the associated if statements around them. Make sure the options are spelt and formatted exactly the same as the select question. Now that we've finished the template, let's test the form. We'll only complete the name and surname and leave the ID and date of birth blank. For the contact details table, let's only fill out the email while leaving the address and telephone blank. If the user adds a temperature over 99, in this case 105, the report should display the text "Individual has a fever" instead of "No fever." To demonstrate the checkboxes, let's choose yes and no alternatively for each symptom. For the final logo image, we'll select Farmer Help as the medical aid and submit. Let's take a look at the final report. Only the questions we answered appear. The ones we left out don't show up. Temperature displays "Individual has a fever" as the integer input was 105. For symptoms, we see checked boxes for the positive symptoms and empty boxes for the negative ones. Lastly, only the selected medical aids logo is visible.